Hello, Pippa, Charley, am I audible?
Hi, Mariam, I'm here.
Yes, just to move forward for the next panel discussion, I have prepared some slides to go through the points of panel discussion, and we receive a few questions that are pre-questions to be addressed by the panel experts. So before we call the panel experts, let me just share the workflow with you. As I just mentioned here, this will be our panel experts topic and the panel experts. Just for the panel experts, we have some points that are to be considered by the panelists so as not to get distracted during the discussion session. Here are a few points. I will keep it there for during the discussion too. How much and in what ways the pandemic has disturbed the scholarly publishing ecosystem, especially in Asia. Number two, highlight the latest innovative ideas, approaches, workflows, or technical tools to equip the scholarly publishing community. Next is what needs to be adopted to survive this technical shift of publishing landscape. These are the 3 points, a very profound one that can be used to keep the panelists on track. And further, we have 3 to 4 questions. Let me share it with you. Question 1, question 2, 3, and so far we just have the 4 questions. I will keep it share the PPT here for all of the panel experts. Now I would like to check if Dr. Zabta Khan Shanwari is available so that he can officially ask the panelists to start the panel discussion. Dr. Shanwari, this is over to you. Once you call the presenters, I will make this screen share again so that they can see the points. If any of the participant or the speaker have question related to the panel experts, please drop into the Q&A room so that the panelists can get access of the question from there and answer accordingly. Over to you, Dr. Shanwari.
Thank you, Mariam. And it's really very difficult task to moderate among such scholarly people. The panel that I have, they are not only by name very smart, but they are actually smart. I'm not talking about Pippa smart. Everybody else is really expert in their field. And we expect that we, in this next 1 hour, we get something which takes our young people who are watching us, listening us, somewhere. The first word that Mariam, the question had put up, distraction or disturbance because of pandemic. From there, let's see how, I will just quote one sentence of Darwin, that it's not the strongest or the most intelligent species that survive, but the one that is most responsive to change. So here is some change coming up, and I don't know whether Homo sapien is a intelligent or strongest or responsive, but today this panelist will try to be responsive to the change that we are witnessing now. So I'm lucky to moderate the 4 teachers that I'm student of, all of them, Pippa Smart, Charley, Miao, Mohammed Sarwar, and of course Gazi, Mehboob, you know, we love from our heart. Mehboob, and it's not only Mehboob of mine, but Mehboob of Alam, the whole Alam. So he's a great man and president of the current session. So a pleasure to have you. Let me give first chance to Pippa Smart and ask, she already read the questions, 6, 7 questions, but I will add to it. The first question, the distraction or disturbance, if I add to it specifically the gender issue, women in publication, mother scientist, any idea, those young girls, those young scientists, females, those what kind of destruction they faced, and what you advise them, what are the opportunities for them that they are now with their children, and how can they, you know, face this destruction that we are already, everybody is facing. But I will take you there for specifically the gender, not only for female, but also for the colored people. We are hearing a lot that they are facing problem. We already heard something about Chinese language barriers, but there are other issues in the developed world too. The colored scientist, what we call it, quote unquote. So over to you, Pippa Smart.
Thank you. Gosh, this is a big question. How many hours do we have for this question?
And I'm sorry, what I'm if Mariam and Sarwar and everybody Mahbub agrees to all of us, please we have to be very specific because the total is 60 minutes, and I expect that every one of you speaks for 2-3 minutes, and then maybe some other moderator, the speakers or the panelists add to you, or it's not specifically targeted to you, but I will then move on to the other three also to add to what you said already. So please go ahead, Pippa.
Thank you. It's a very interesting question about whether the pandemic during the last 18 months has increased gender disparity in scholarly publishing. There was some research published in Nature that showed that women had been disadvantaged, presumably because of greater carer and home responsibilities, and therefore the number of publications from women was lower. But that research came out, I believe, in about September or October last year, and I don't know if there's been any subsequent follow-up research on that. Intuitively, I would say that women probably have been more disadvantaged because regardless of perceived equity, women are still considered in most cultures to be the homekeepers and the people responsible for looking after children. So if children are at home, women are having to spend a greater amount of their time looking after them. But again, that's my gender bias, is to assume that women have been given those responsibilities. I suspect there probably has been a greater disadvantage, but the one thing I would say is that the last 18 months are causing quite a revolution in scholarly communications. And I'm an optimist, and I hope that there will be a greater shake-up in the next few years coming out of this pandemic for our area. And I hope that women will play a greater role within the scholarly and the research area. But I mean, there are other factors as well. There is a new bit of research that my journal has accepted, but it's not yet published, which is showing that women have very different attitudes to their publications. And these attitudes were in place before the pandemic and have probably been exacerbated by the pandemic. And they make women less willing to submit their work to open access journals, for example, and their journal selection is affected, is somewhat different than journal selection amongst male researchers. So they'll pay more attention to only submitting to journals where they think they're going to be accepted, and to journals that they are confident will give them greater academic reward than men that are slightly more able and more willing to take risk. But I do worry that the last 18 months may have might be detrimental to women's science, but I hope we will bounce back in the next 18 months.
Thank you, Pippa. And let me, if you allow, I will go to Gazi Mahbub-ul-Haq and ask him to address other questions too. But just the disparity that you mentioned, specifically we who are looking after our countries, specifically we are trying to have equity and equality. In that sense, Gazi Mahbub-ul-Haq, can you add to this and addressing creativity, new thoughts, specifically in STEM? Gender disparity in STEM was greater, and we are worried that this pandemic may increase the disparity. So over to you, Gazi.
Thank you, Prof. Jaftab Khan. The perspective you are talking about, let me bring the perspective in a very narrowing down to Asia. Because of the cultural constraint, women has to play very well-rounded role. I would say wicket keeper, batsman or bowler even sometime. So given the norms of that as in women, as a case of South Asia is difficult and challenging. So pandemic has made them academic, full-time housewife, housekeeper, and so forth on. Now, also if you see the evident publication in STEM, science, medicine, or many more, within the Southern Asia or Asia even, women's participation in science programs are less. So given that as a fact, definitely pandemics must have, I would say even there is no evidence, must have widened the gap between male and female, where female might be critically, I would not say victims, that's a tough word, critically have taken different challenging path. Now that is kind of evident as an observations. In reality, the challenge of publication culture in Asia is growing and is importantly challenging. So if the women cannot do well, is coming to a big threat in the future term. Now, when you are asking me what kind of recommendation could help to really make a put forward or going to forward, I would see, or I would take a different action on it. Actually, if there is no good research, there shouldn't be a good publications. At the moment, even the research has been stopped in many ways. So many people are publishing either using old data, or many people are publishing as their own researchers. So the new research is some way stopped. So only thing the publication community can really make an women empowerment is in order to make the balance of the women, if there is a consensus between different kind of publishers. It could be subscribed, it could be open access, or it could be a blended mode or joint mode. If they actually can try to take as an important agenda and bring up good intentions, or try to find out some striking findings from the researches conducted by the women and make them highly publicized and make them highly important value, it would offer much, not just to the empowerment of the women, it also will create a high value for the publisher as well. So if the publisher understand that's as a constraint, only the solution would happen. So publisher need to understand, not just because of the publication, but because of the wider long-term visions, publisher need to take into the matter very seriously, the matter he brought in. And if that happens, probably we can see more constructive way of going publications in the forthcoming days.
Thank you, Gazi. And going to Charley and Sarwar, just to add to it, to take it broader. When we talk about modernism, and Pippa Smart said that we are, and we agree that we all, an illiterate person like me who could not probably thought that except for Skype and others, we would have so many different kind of forums available to talk to the world. If I was participating, let's say on average 2 meetings in a month abroad, now I'm participating almost 10 meetings every month, because everybody is saying you're not investing more time, you're sitting at home. So taking this on, another aspect that Gazi Mahbubul Alam addressed was this data, old data, new data. I will call it good science and public trust. Take it on to Charley and Mohammed Sarwar. If you could kindly add to all this if you want, and then take it on. And with these opportunities that we have, how to win public trust, because we earlier in the morning we heard a lot about retraction. It takes 3 days to accept a paper, but it takes 3 months to retract a paper. There were evidence already published. So good science, public trust, which are the valuable tool for all of us to have in the public. Charley and Sarwar, over to both of you to add to all this, the question that we already have, take those as a basis: destruction, modernism, creativity, and new thoughts. Your views, please.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead, Sarwar.
Okay. Okay. I will express my opinion about the publishing community and current situation. I think pandemic situation has brought new challenges and opportunities for the scholarly publishing, especially in Asia. We know that advanced countries already using the state-of-the-art tools to manage their academic journals. But at the same time, Asian publishing community is unawarely reluctant to use the latest tools to manage their journals and feels more comfortable to publish their journals with traditional models. Also, the pandemic situation forced the Asian publishing community to use the modern ways to manage and publish their scholarly journals. I think modernism in the current situation in scholarly publishing is to adopt the use of innovative ways of communication. And when we talk about creativity, it is to develop new tools and or use existing tools to share knowledge.
Thank you, sir. What's up, Charley?
Okay, just continues with the point of Mohammed. And of course, the plugin itself is very, but still, I think for publishing industry, and it is a new chance and opportunity, very challenging. And also, particularly for some, for example, online tools, and some new techniques, some operation model, for example, for database. Previously, many scholars, even publishing editors, they rely very heavily on database because they working at their office and they can use the database. But now they're working at home. In many situations, they do not have the access rights to the big database. So in that case, I think in different aspects, there are quite a lot of change. But change itself is a challenge. Just like today, there are quite a lot of introduction for new techniques, for example, just like in my slides. Some, for example, kudos, Pablon, and GMD. This sort of new techniques. I just give one example. I joined this company, before I joined GMD, I was working for in Oxford University Press, and I still remember that at that time. For the publisher, the most usually used tools, something like email campaigns, conference, and even for social media, it is a new conception at that time. But since I joined GMD since the beginning of 2017, and when I publicize or promote this conception within mainland China, nobody heard about what is so-called GMD, what is the cross website recommendation, what is kudos, everything. They don't know everything. So just like we said that, particularly in Asia, I think the plugin itself is very bad, but it also brings in quite a lot of this sort of motivation, some quite a lot of challenging change techniques. That is good. I think in today's conference, there are quite a lot of points already.
Thank you, Charley. Before moving forward, I ask other speakers if they could either briefly write in Q&A their thoughts and question added material, and Mariam will assist me to read that whenever she wants to. We will have now a second round of the things that we already have. A bit add to all of this, where what we have the questions in mind. Basically, there are 4 key words proposed initially by Mariam: was distraction, modernism, creativity, and new thoughts about this pandemic. And now if we take those keywords forward, how you as a publisher, as a writer, as an author, as a reviewer, but you are main part of the society. So as I said, trust of the society on scientists, or all of us, all of what we are talking. So let me take it on. What do you expect in new normal about the shape of the things that will come up in post-pandemic world? Whatever modernism we have, like Sarwar said, we have to adapt ourselves to the things. So what do you expect? Like I link this to the children habit of reading was almost is nowadays now existing, though they are sitting at home, but they're more playing on mobile and internet. At least at my home, I don't know about your home, and I'm a tribal man living on the mountains. So I can imagine you are the most literate people that I have on panel. So taking it on, I will now start right from the back. I don't know Sarwar is out or in, but Gazi Mahbubul Alam can start the discussion about. Mariam, you want to say something?
Dr. Zabta Khan Shanwari, I just wanted to let the panelists know that I have added the questions that were on PPT in the QA room, if you can check by Jean. So we have mentioned the person who asked the question too. So you can take the question from there, address accordingly, and answer the questions. So far we have 4. Also, if any of the participants have any question for the panelists, please drop it in QA room rather than chat.
Good. Yeah. Please. And Mariam will at least read it if the panelists are busy and talking. Mariam, you read it and you can interrupt us whenever you like. Please.
Sure.
So over to Gazi Mahbubul Alam. I said new normal, post-pandemic. And these 4 key words that Mariam put us in a lot of pressure on us: distraction, modernism, creativity, new thoughts, and the new normal. Go ahead, Gazi Mahbub. Unmute yourself, please. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, please go ahead.
I didn't want to bring out the name of publisher in order to make an analogy, but still I have to. If you go back to very earlier days, Chicago University Press was one of the biggest publishers. And they made a remarkable progress in terms of the paradigm transformations, revolutionary development of the knowledge. Now, these days, if you look onto their impact factor of the journals and many more, they're not progressing as the way Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, and many more are doing. Now, why is that? Because probably in terms of modernizations, articulation to the modern responsive, DOI, many instruments, many statistics. So many modern publishers are using statistics game or modernization game as to validate the scientific evidences. Does that mean that actually Chicago University is publishing less quality than those? Very hard to answer, very difficult to answer. But at the end of the day, market determines, people determines. People are not going to wait for 3 years after accept you, and then you publish, and then the paper become old. So now one way, quality control is important, which is denied, sometimes modernizations or articulation of moderns. But it does not mean that modernization are important or digitalization is important or technologizations are important. All are important, but not at the cost of quality. Now, these days, digitalization, modernizations, or very much responsive to the so-called impact factor and many more. Many unique things are brought in by unique scientists or unique commercial mind of thought. So that are important, but not at the cost of quality. So how to balance between those? It's very important that we need to set up the target by the publisher itself. There should be a very important consortium need to be developed within the publisher, authors, editors, and reviewer. And at the end of the day, they need to understand market-driven democracy and all those things are good as a chopstick noodles, but not as a knowledge innovations. At the end of the day, we are talking democratizations, market-driven. All these concepts come from knowledge. So if there is no knowledge, the new concept won't come, rather the old concept will be sorted out in the different names. So I am in adherent of adopting all digitalization, technologizations. I'm also adherent of putting all the modern things in place. But there must be a projections, there must be a quality control checks, and there must be good people, or the people who have good intentions must be the publishers. Who have the good intention must be the academic. Who have the good intention must be the reviewer. It's not I am an academic because I left out from the other jobs, so I become an academic. I am an academic because I love the job, I'm passionate. I'm a publisher because I am not left out by a grocery shop business. I'm a publisher because I love knowledge business. So that has the inquisitiveness need to be in place and embodied and blended together. If that happens, probably you won't be asking me this question after 20 years. जब तक your microphone is muted.
I'm sorry. So Gazi, I'm going to Pippa Smart just to take your views a bit forward. You talk about one word and that brings to my mind some other word, democratizing science and citizen science. In this pandemic, shall we go down age barrier and evidence-based teaching and learning to children, importance of science literacy, biology? In the morning, I talk about all this evidence-based and, Pippa, how you take it on? Because Mahbub put us in some good, arguments. When we talk about trust, when we talk about, code of conduct, we talk about different things. Then as a responsibility of science publishers, authors and reviewers, can we take it on, little down age barrier and, down to the common man?
I think these are very interesting questions, and unfortunately, I don't think we have the answer to them. The last year through the pandemic has seen an enormous rise in the number of publications. But as Dr. Alam said, how do we know they're good quality? But we cannot say they are bad quality. We won't know because a retraction can take 30 years, and we won't know whether what's gone on in the last 12 months has been good quality or bad quality research. But I think the one thing we can say is that there is increasing democratization of access to information. My concern, and this might be a little bit controversial, but my concern is that the increased democratization of information, whilst in itself is a very good thing, it's actually leading, I believe, to poorer quality research. And my reason, and can I say, Dr. Alam, thank you for nodding when I said that, because this is a very difficult subject. The preprint servers are an excellent idea. Nobody wants to wait 12 months for your article to be published because it's then out of date. So preprint servers are great. They're publicly available. Everyone can access them. That's great. That's democracy. My concern, though, is a lot of the people that are accessing preprint servers do not realise that they are not peer-reviewed journals and that those articles have not been validated. But the caveat to that, of course, is that peer review doesn't guarantee an article is good quality because peer review is variable. But I am very concerned that we are getting a lot of science out there which is being picked up by journalists, by members of the public, and also by some scientists who have not been lucky enough to be trained properly or to be mentored or to work in a strong research environment, that they are picking up information which is not validated, that might have been retracted, and they are using it as the basis for their forward-going research. I'm not saying that the traditional old-fashioned journals are the right way forward, but I am concerned about the quality of research going forward that is making it into the public sphere and into a platform that is considered to be trustworthy. I talk to a lot of researchers that think that bioRxiv and that medRxiv are journals. They think that everything in there has been peer-reviewed. Some of the newer initiatives to actually put proper peer reviews rather than just public comment on bioRxiv are possibly the way to go forward. Personally, I like the F1000 model, which is a hybrid between a journal and a preprint server, because that clearly signals to every article when you read it, not peer reviewed or peer reviewed and this is what they've said. And so everybody is given information, there is proper transparency. And we do need that transparency if we're going to democratize information and if we're going to keep trust in information. And I think there's so many very big problems here, and because we are not a discrete community, the STEM environment is millions of people, and millions of people who don't talk to other millions of people. And I don't know the answer of how we increase quality and how we increase trust in publications. And all of the changes that we've been implementing, particularly over the last year, and I think we have reached a watershed moment in the way that science is communicated last year, and we're not going to go backwards. Preprints are now here to stay. They are now part of our environment. And whilst on the one hand, it's a very good thing and it's very positive for diversity, for ensuring that knowledge is global and is not withheld within elite communities, we do need better validation processes. But I don't know what they are. So I have all the questions, but I don't have any of the answers.
Thank you. Just going, I read the questions from several of our participants, and I'm grateful to Inayatullah, Erwin from Indonesia, Manan from Bangladesh, and Bushra. They had some questions, and I will address those questions to the remaining two panelists to kindly, and then you both can also add. Sarwar and Charley, the questions are about predatory journals, which is one of the issues for the young people, when they don't know really, because the attraction, of course, we know how to, the gray hair people can understand how to identify it, but you as the experienced people, they have the question about predatory journal. There's a question about open science. There is a question about quality. There is a question about cost of publication, open science versus cost of publication. So these are the issues of the people living specifically in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, even the richest part of Asia, Malaysia and Indonesia, they are also suffering. If they ask for you $7,000 and sometimes they ask processing fee $2,000-3,000 and they say, sorry, we cannot publish, your English is very bad. So to all of you, but starting from the Sarwar and then Charley and then back to both of you. Sarwar, please.
Microphone is.
Okay, in my opinion, with technological solutions, we can address the predatory journals issue. If we try to force the publishing landscape of publishers to get the latest technology, to get the DOIs and other latest tools and disseminate their published literature with different ways. So in this way, we can easily identify their ethical practices and their peer-reviewed, how much they have published with peer-reviewed. I think so technologically we can manage them.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Sarwar, Charlie. And then, because this may be the last round, the next one, we are already running out of time. So very briefly, Charlie, if you could add this, and I will just put some more, what we call it in our language, spices to the curry, so that it is more, you know, so for you, I want to learn from all of you, the panelists. So if we add to this the neglected aspect that we normally, we don't think, like publishing in high impact, disaster of impact factor was my favorite subject. I usually discuss with the policymakers in Pakistan, how to measure the quality of a brain, whether with this impact factor or other things like local issues versus publication in international hi-fi journals. I give you one example of biodiversity and, you know, national parks and pandemics and priorities. If this moves to the wild animals, what will happen, etc., etc. So I'm not going into that, but Charlie first, and then again to Pippa and Gazi, and then we try to wind it up. Charlie.
Charlie, please unmute the mic first.
Okay. Sorry, always forget that. Okay, and I think for a successful journal, the very important thing is, the basic point is, even if under this very special plague situation or new technical, something like that, but basically speaking, very important point is good content. Of course, each journal would like to publish good content and peer reviewed and also quality. So that is a basic point, particularly for peer review. We had quite a lot of discussion in the whole world. That is still a very important starting point. We should abide by that basic point. But what I'm thinking about is, just like Pippa said, not Pippa said, who said that? Chicago University, for example, did some comparison between university press and some commercial publishers, and also impact factor. I think it doesn't mean that, I completely agree that it doesn't mean that the Chicago University Press published low quality papers or something like that. I think several key points. First point is, under this special circumstance, because for example, particularly for university press, traditionally speaking, they prefer, or they were used to have some sort of conference, face-to-face meeting, discussion, and academic exchange of idea. That sort of thing is very important to promote or enhance the quality of the journals. But nowadays, with the very serious situation, this sort of activity has to be stopped or killed down to some low frequency. That makes sense. For example, even if for university press, they had good content, but they seriously lack some sort of very efficient marketing channels. Just like I said previously, because nowadays all the scientists have to prefer or have to work at home. So they do not have the accessing right for the database or this sort of facility, basic facility. When they work in university, they can get that. They have this sort of capabilities. But now, if they work at home, I think there might be quite a lot of problems. But compared to a university press, I think commercial publishers, they are bigger. They have, for example, they are very used to use directly some very advanced marketing channel, social media, also, for example, internet, this sort of thing, marketing channel. So compared between these two group of publishers, I think one of the reason for university press, we get the idea, oh, their quality is low. But the other point is, the second point is, I think impact factor itself is usually very controversial. It doesn't mean that, it shouldn't be that impact factor is the a sign of the quality. So that is very controversial. For commercial publishers, they have the ability to maintain the increase of the impact factor. But for university press, maybe they do not have this in particular under this very special plagiarism situation. Everything is changed. The world is changing, everything is changed. So that is my point.
Thank you, Charlie. And now, Pippa, you may have address to all of this, but before I ask you, Mariam will be responding to the lot of questions that are about sharing material of today's event, because it was having a lot of data. By the end of this panel discussion, which is now the last round, Mariam will respond to that question, which is almost asked several times. I went through the Q&A session, how she would add. Of course, she needs a permission from the authors, the presenters, and everybody, intellectual property rights, which we are facing now. So, Pippa, your final thoughts about all the discussion that we had, and then, of course, Gazi Mahbub Alam asked for comments on this topic. He will have next to you. And then finally, I will hand it over to the organizer. Then Gazi Mahbub will have another chance also to speak as a chair of the conference to conclude the session. Pippa Smart, please.
Thank you. I mean, responding to all of this, I think, we are in a big situation of flux, and there's been several questions about quality and about trust, and also about predatory journals. One comment I would make about predatory journals is good journals become bad, and bad journals can become good. The key factor of trusting any journal is to read the articles that are in the journal and be skeptical, always be skeptical of every bit of research that you read, and be skeptical of your own research to determine the quality of it. There are good articles in bad journals, and there are bad articles in good journals. It can be extremely difficult to choose a good journal, and I think this has become harder. And as people are using their old data, and as they have time to work from home and perhaps participate more in research, there is an opportunity to publish in new venues. I think, Dr. Sarwar has made an excellent point, is that journals really need to adopt the new technologies. You need to have DOIs, you need to be registered, you need to be making sure that your data is available, you need to have high ethical standards, you need to have good editorial boards, and every researcher should be checking this in every journal that they either want to submit their research to or that they want to read. And I think the time has come really when journals need to step up. Every journal should be a member of the 21st century, not a member of the 19th century. And this is one of the ways that we can protect trust, but also increase democratization of information. So I hope that helps as my insight. If I had longer, I could talk for longer.
Wonderful people you all panelists are, and I'm enjoying it, but I will have my final comments reserved after Gazi Mahbub Alam had spoken on the issues that we raised. And then we conclude the session and then hand it over to the organizer. Gazi Mahbub Alam. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. I want to bring a couple of things probably that might help the younger people or younger researchers. The criteria of predatory journals and their schema is very different and unique. Some of them are by choice. Sometimes they copy other people's journals, good journals, website, and so on. So that is by choice predatory journals. Second is by intentions. Means that they want to be earning money, so they are predatory and journals. Sometimes it becomes an unintentional factor and many more. So now two predatory journals are clear to identify whether they are genuine journals or they are copying. So just if they are not genuine journals, leave them out. or if their intention are very unclear, you can always see, submit, and then they will give you easy access, all those things. So these two are very easy to pick up the journals, whether they are good journals or bad journals. Then you need to check with the ISBN number, ISSN number, and all those things. If they are copying the name, of course, they cannot copy the numbers or blah, blah. So many misleading or beguile or fraud journals are there. Having said that, now no technology actually can stop fraud if somebody want to do the frauding. So technology may enhance also the frauding sometime. So it is, we have to be very careful as an author, as a writer, as a reviewer, and all those things, how we should not be cheated or we should not be frauded. If we are a scholar and if we know how to read good articles, definitely bad journals cannot make us misled. So sometimes we are misled, we are being cheated because we are not good scholar, or we don't actually love our own article. If I love our own article, I'm going to read many papers from the same journals and I can discover whether they are good quality or not. So sometimes actually, in order to cover my own limitations, I don't read the journals very carefully because I need publications. So that part we need to avoid first instance. Second or the third stage is sometimes the reviewers they don't make predicted journals, but they can be biased. By reading the English, reviewer can eventually understand the country from where or the continent from where the articles are coming. So sometimes they don't really go into the details of the articles, rather based on the English, they reject that. So that kind of journals, I don't see their spread, but in terms of understanding research, they are just more on emphasizing on what is called the languages. Now reviewer, do they always do the punctual job? Probably they don't. They have the time constraint and so forth on. So in order to check and balance, sometimes the editorial board also make a very good screening. But of course, editorial board may not always do the good screening. They are biased people. But at the end of the day, if editorial board is taking time to screen, means the journal has at least something to faith in. If the reviewer board is taking some time on it, at least you can trust on them. So the people, the journals who are not giving ample time to actually evaluate an article, we should not consider them. Second is, am I publishing? I'm hurry. Am I publishing because my article is not good quality? So as a researcher, I need to ask myself many questions. If I have a positive answer, I am not submitting the article in the journals because I want a quick publications. I'm not submitting this article in the journals. I'm convinced it's a good article and I'm not submitting that in order to get an easy access. So sometimes author makes the difference of the journals. So if the authors are really good, a predicted journals, they can make it different. So being an author, we have a huge responsibility to protect that rather than blaming that. So when we take a ownership as an author that I'm going to make a good contributions, only that is the way we can do it. But authors sometimes are very busy in order to have the publications or in order to publish there. So authors are cheated because they are giving a chance to be cheated. So this is humbly appeal to the author, please have trust on yourself, trust on your own article. And then if you trust this is good, read some of the good articles from the journals. And then they say whether you are in good quality and they are in good quality. If both of them are aligned, submit them. And if you are in bad quality, of course, you are going to end up with the bad quality journals. So if it is you, then just match it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Gazi Mahbub Balalam. And, before I allow Mariam to speak, because she has an advantage of having my mobile number and she can just hammer me for a question. But before that, Abdul Azim, Neeraj, and Kenneth had some comments, and that comments were partially responded by Gazi regarding training of editors and, those who are checking the papers or sometimes maybe they are in so hurry, like partially Gazi responded that they look at the country, at the name. If it's an unfamous name like myself, nobody will respond. Even if it's Gazi, everybody will accept it in first go. So that is the difference that maybe, so partially Neeraj and Abdulazim and Kenneth, your questions were responded. And last question by Mariam Sayab, and then with that, I will hand it over to Mariam also. And if the panelist has any last burning sentence they want to say, most welcome. Otherwise, over to Mariam for your question, as well as concluding this session too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shanwari. As we come upon for the predatory journals, I have a very small query for the panelists. When operating the events of ACSE, recently we have been engaged in too much conversation related to predatory journals. I would like to ask the question that what are the chances, either, especially for the Asian region, the publishers and the journals and the content being published is in a much more quantity. So what are the chances? Either there is they are technically poor, or they are listed as predatory journal. Can they be approved? Because a journal publishing from an underdeveloped country, obviously there will be lack of technical tools, there will be lack of strategic approaches to the editorial workflows. So as Charlie, you know that China, it's publishing a huge quantity of research production, and majority of our Asian journals, they are listed as predatory. So my question here is that are they really predatory journals, or do they lack technically? They can be improved by the technical aids and listed to be not predatory, because most of the journals managing from Asia, obviously they are technically poor. They are on a very early stages. They are managed by the researchers or the persons who are not well equipped with the scholarly publishing tools and techniques. So for Asia specifically.
Thank you, Mariam. Please, a couple of sentences each of the panelists, starting from Pippa, Sarwar, Charley, and then last Gazi. Pippa, please.
Well, to be honest, I would probably defer to Charlie with this because, I'm not in China myself, but I know there's been a lot of concern over the government's listing of journals. I'm sure there are very good reasons for their listing of journals that were not going to be accredited. I think it was like a traffic light system. So red flag journals, amber journals, and green, which are the OK journals. And I think some of it came up because they identified some journals that were publishing excessive numbers of Chinese articles in the opinions of the board that actually set up these criteria. And it is difficult because I think Mariam's made an excellent point. Journals get called predatory when actually they're not predatory. They're just either naive, or they haven't established themselves properly, or they're running a system that might be contrary to someone else's belief, or somebody might have a personal bias against them. It is very difficult. I'm extremely nervous about using the term predatory for anyone apart from somebody that deserves to go to jail. There is definitely a wrong way of publishing, but then there is a whole multitude of ways that are either acceptable or not acceptable. If BioArchive said it was a journal, it would be called predatory because they don't peer review. But equally, the spam messages I get from hundreds of journals doesn't mean that they're predatory, but they're very, very irritating. And I wish those journals would leave me alone and not invite me to write articles for them. But they're not necessarily predatory. But I think on particularly the question over the Chinese government's listing, I don't know if Charlie has more to say on this point.
Charlie, please, over to you.
Okay. I would add 3 points. Point one, just like Pippa said, Pippa is half an expert for Chinese policy, and in China, there are several limitations. For example, one limitation is in China, people can't publish or launch a new journal very easily. There is very strict limitation. So that caused some problem because in China, there are quite a lot of scientists. China is so big. So it's really hard for Chinese scientists to publish their articles in some, for example, academic journals. So that gave some sort of opportunity for some abnormal local publisher to launch new journal. And that is point one, because there are limitations for launching new journal in China. That is a very bad policy, particularly for STM, because there is no political reason. People, for scientists, if they would like to launch the new journal, they should. And the second point is, because this sort of limitation, at least for some, for example, I don't want to mention the name of the local publisher. For example, local people would like to launch the either one journal, either several journals, or academic publisher. They have to register outside China. So they register the company, for example, in America, in whatever, Singapore, Hong Kong also, but the publishers are in fact China-based. So I know that in some situation, some sort of organization treat this sort of publishers as predatory publishers. It is unfair because no way so. And that is bad thing. But the good thing is, for Chinese government, related to Chinese governments, they already feel that is not good. So they published launched some new policy. For example, 2 years ago, because on one hand, scientists, the Chinese government don't allow people to launch new journals. So the number of local journals are very limited. So in that case, the Chinese government said, oh, for Chinese scientists, you shouldn't publish so many articles. You should limit the amount of published articles to some, for example, 10 or 5, even 5 in whole your life. But that is not reality. That's not reality. So I think the main reason come back is Chinese policy. And I echo with Pippa strongly. In this case, it's unfair to treat this sort of publisher as predatory. But of course, there are some, they are really, how to say that, they launch journals only for money. So that is good. That is really depends. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlie. And I think if there is no other burning issue, what I propose is that I would say thanks to all the panelists. Sarwar and Gazi will have another chance to conclude the whole, because he's the chair of the conference. He's a big gun. If he says stop, I will stop now. But Sarwar, if you don't have any other issue to add to it, then I say thanks to Pippa Smart, Charley, Sarwar, Gazi, Mahbubul Alam, and of course, Mariam. I personally learned a lot from all of you. It was a great session, the last one, because this was the crunch of the whole day. The people who are still attending and listening you, watching you. I'm grateful to Pippa Smart. She has already put some material for the young researchers in the Q&A. You can see the policies and other issues. From there, you can copy and all this. Mariam will be in touch with you. So will be the other members of the conference. The organizer will respond to your questions. Please write them email, as in the morning Mariam had already explained to all of you. Now, it's a time again for a smile. Earlier, Sarwar didn't listen to me properly. He didn't smile, and he has to pay for the coffee that I had consumed in the whole day. So we will have a very good smile for photograph all those who are the panelists, the speakers, other speakers of the whole day. Kasser Jamil is already there. So will be General Aslam, if he could kindly put on their cameras. I want to see them smile. General Saab, I want to see you smile, you know. So is Dikram Trosar and other friends. All of you are requested to put on your camera over to Mariam. When you say 1, 2, 3, either you should say cry or smile. Both will work. Thank you.
Okay, Dr.
And thank you very much, everybody.
Just to add, first we will be having one picture for all of the available speakers and moderators, and then we are going to merge the participants with the speakers room. So it will take like a minute or something. So all of the participants, they can put their camera on and we can have a picture collectively. So first we are going to have a picture of the speakers and moderators for now. Dr. Aslam, can you please put your camera on? Dr. Janae, yes, all of the speakers are now in the frame. So it's Dr. Jani Dilip. Okay, so smile. Thank you. Now I am going to merge, requesting the host to merge the participants so that they can have a picture with all of the speakers too, because since morning, they're all very much anxious to have picture with the panelists and the moderators and the speakers. Dr. Shinwari, can you please engage the moderators? Meanwhile, I merge the participants to this room.
Hard task to engage people, you know, engage, the word engage in our country, you know, is used, which Kasser Jamil, aap sun rahi hai na, let me speak a little bit in Hindi also, so that, because I miss Hyderabad, I had a very good biryani over there, and so Mona is in a very sacred place, and I hope they allow us to have again Umrah and all this, because my family insisted, you know, I'm at home, so they say, why don't you go out, at least go to Saudi Arabia. You are now a white bearded man, so go to Saudi Arabia. I'm already keeping them busy, but yeah, do your job, whatever you want to do. And we
participants, there is a short announcement. While I move you from the participant room to the speaker room, there will be a pop-up window. Please attend your screen properly. And then allow the notification so that both of the rooms can be merged and we can have a picture. Dr. Shinwari, you can continue meanwhile.
You mean I continue with the jokes alone, or somebody else will join me in saying anything you
have
want?
A whole of speakers and moderators with you. They are going to join you in anything.
Okay. So anybody who can speak Pashto, that is my mother tongue, Afghani tongue. Now, nowadays, you know, everybody wants to talk about Afghanistan. And I belong to Afghanistan, basically. Shinwari name, you can Google it and you can find the whole tribe there. Anybody who wants to talk about, you know, imagine publishing in Afghanistan. Imagine the scientists, specifically the female scientists in Afghanistan. How they feel and how they would compete with all of us or all of you. So you can have comments about anything you want to say. I mean,
Dr. Shinwari, if you allow me, I've got one point.
Yes, sir.
Okay? With due apologize, the discussion topic was distraction, modernism, and creativity, and ways to generate new thoughts and implementation in scholarly publication, whereas we all slipped into predatory journals, gender discrimination, and peer reviewing, and so forth. Were we able from this outcome to generate new thoughts and scholarly publishing? And one of my questions for the thinking process in the future is it distraction which leads to modernism or creativity, or it is modernism which is the cause of distraction in scholarly publications?
A good question. I would ask the panelists to respond, but just on my side, there is a Chinese saying that go to the old tradition if you want to find solution to the new problems. There is a very good, in fact, they started doing that. I'm involved with Chinese, this Build Road and Belt Initiative. I'm working with them. So there is also an organization. So one of the saying was, if you want to find solution to the current problems, go to the old thoughts of the old way of dealing such issues that you are confronted with. I think you didn't listen once I said in the whole conference, the moderation, the last event that I said, reading habits of children.
Yes.
And, even 1 month old child in my grandchildren is being fed with the mobile. Otherwise, she never takes food. So you can imagine what's happening. Over to any panelist who wants to respond to General Aslam's query. Anybody?
Dr. Shanwari, if you allow, I would like to make another announcement for the participant. Please check their screens and accept the invitation to join the other room.
Please.
There are almost 20 to 25 participants who are not responding to the screen.
Okay, we will have another 2 minutes to allow all of you to please accept the option, and many of them they already did. So another 2 minutes, otherwise you will lose the opportunity to have photographed with the such journal. Then you can send their photograph with your article to these publishers to publish your article. So it's a good opportunity to take photo with them, with Pippa Smart and Sarwar and everybody else, Mahbub Alaf, so that you could publish your paper also. Come on, have your photograph. Over to Pippa. Pippa wanted to respond to Aslam Sir.
Yeah, I was going to respond to Dr. Aslam because I think what you've asked is a really interesting question. I was thinking there is a lot of innovation going on, but I think a lot of journal editors are worried about innovating. And I was thinking do we lead innovation or do we follow innovation? And the problem is that academia is incredibly conservative, and academia does not really like change. And so academia says you get credit if you publish in a journal which is indexed with an impact factor, with Medline, is an international journal, etc. And it does proper peer review. What is proper peer review? I don't know. And I think it's very difficult because I think academia actually stops journal editors and journal publishers from being innovative. And for a lot of us, we end up just following the lead because it's very risky to introduce a new system because you might be called predatory, and suddenly all your authors might stop submitting to you because they no longer get the credibility and the recognition. And I think it's hugely difficult to be highly innovative. I mean, F1000 Research is a case in point. That journal has been publishing now for, I think, it must be 8, 9, maybe even 10 years. And yet it is still highly criticised. It's criticised by academia, although it's well used. But very interestingly, Taylor and Francis actually purchased the company. And since they've purchased it, there's now a Wellcome Research platform using it. There's Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation using it. The European Commission is now launching their own platform using it for their own grantees. So all the research funders want to use this innovative way of publishing. But I think the universities and academia themselves are still going, oh, we're a bit scared about this. We're not really sure this is the right type of journal or the way forward. And I think it can be very difficult. I think there are a lot of barriers to innovation. But I always encourage, when I train editors, and I train editors, as Charley will know a lot, I always encourage them, be innovative. Introduce things. You can always say, we're sorry it didn't work, and you can go back to the previous way. But, we're in a new century. We're 21 years into the 21st century. The world is now connected. We are a global community. We're a global community of a lot of different cultures, and there's so many things that we could be doing better as an STM community and the social sciences and humanities. We could be doing things so much better than we are. And the question to say is, if journals did not exist today, would we invent them to be as they are now? And I don't think we would. I think we would invent a completely different system of social communication, of communication. And so, I think there is huge opportunity there for innovation. Personally, I love change, but a lot of people I know are slightly wary of it. But I think, Dr. Aslam, I think it's such a great question because I think there are so many barriers to it that it can be very daunting.
Thank you very much. Thank you indeed.
Thank you, Pippa. And just to add to Aslam's point, in our country, Pakistan, we are faced with the Higher Education Commission dilemma. We had a very difficult time to have a dozen good journals in Pakistan in the last several years. And all of a sudden they said, oh, we don't accept this because we want Q1, 2, and XYZ. And the local journals were, it's a story of hen and egg. What fast quality versus there were several questions about pedigree and others. So we were faced, and all of a sudden the students were asked to pay thousands of dollars to publish and write that quality of paper outside. So it is a question of relevance with the country, with the local problems, with the local needs, with the local, promotion of local journals versus international and all this, because international journals will be more interested in having frontier technologies and having relevance to the whole world and having, so look, they may not be interested in the local small stories. So General Aslam, we are, stuck, and these change in the policies instead of promoting, helping, innovating, giving them opportunity to rise. We did wonderfully well in the last 20 years. But at the same time, again, we were asked, and I was one of the critiques of the country's policy, talking to them that, come on, give them time, space, and they will come with those standards that they are needed. But one day waking up in the morning and saying from tomorrow, if you don't publish in impact factor 10 plus, your PhD is not recognized. So come on, man, that cannot happen overnight. People rightly said, we have to innovate, of course, but we have to give them time to come up and live with that. Our countries have problem of language. We have several problems that I gave an example of Afghanistan now, and we are not that good. We are facing problems, so we have to help them. This is a scientific community. There are a lot of issues to be discussed, and in future, Sarwar and Mariam will again. Mariam, how long you want me to talk more, or ask somebody else
Dr.
to ask another question?
It's enough. We have sent all of the participants an invitation to merge the rooms. Unfortunately, around 20 to 30 participants, they are not responding. Might be they do not want to take picture, just like you. So let's begin with the available persons who are available right now, the participants, speakers, moderators. As the Zoom window do not allow us to take one picture in a time, because there are almost, I can see 4 screens of participants and speakers. So let's just have a quick picture, and then we will move towards the closing ceremony, closing remarks from Dr. Gazi Mahabubul Alam, and we will officially call it the day.
Thank you. She politely said, shut up, and I'm going to take picture. So thank you, Mariam. Go ahead.
I did not say that, Dr. Shinwari.
Meaning in
This
my
is
language
something
is
you avoid. You wanted to tell me that I do not say smile, as you already make all
I'm
of the
smiling. I wanted to smile and bring smile on all the faces. That's why I said that. Otherwise, they're not smiling. They're very serious people. So I wanted to them to
Dr.
smile.
Keser was checking her camera if she is available.
Keser Jamil. Jamil means beauty. Keser, come on.
I'm already there now, so again,
Okay, so we are taking the picture.
She went somewhere else. I
Smile.
can't see her. Anyway, smile, please, or cry. She's there.
This was the first window that was taken. We have 3 more. Second one also taken. moving to the next one. It's probably the last for now. So thank you. This picture session has been done. Dr. Gazi, you can now go for the closing remarks so that we can conclude today.